Xin chào mọi người. Hello everybody. Reporting to you from the airport in Ho Chi Minh City. Here at SGN. It's time to leave Vietnam. I can't believe I've been here 11 months. It was 2 months in Hanoi and 9 months here in Can Tho. Well, I'm not here in Can Tho anymore because we had to ride in a bus. It took 4 hours, but we finally arrived at the airport in Saigon. So even though I say I'm leaving Vietnam, I'm not really leaving. We'll come back in a couple of months. I really failed in showing you the ins and outs of Can Tho. I have to come back, if for nothing else, to give Can Tho the attention it deserves and to show you more of what it has to offer.
But as for the rest of this video, I want to go over some of the lessons that I've learned over the last 9 months, starting with, for me personally, I find that taking a break from routine makes it very difficult to restart said routine. For example, in 2015, to focus on some university courses, I stopped martial arts training for 3 months. Guess who has not had any martial arts training since? Yes, 3 months turned into 8 years. I found out this year that I have the same issue when it comes to producing videos for the channel. If I take a week off, then it easily turns into 2 weeks, and it just gets harder and harder to get back on the horse. From now on, I really do just need to make a strict schedule and do whatever it takes to follow it, because if I take a break, it gets harder to get back to it.
Back during the month of April, I wanted to make a budget video, as I've seen so many other people do. The living expenses. How much does it cost them to live in their new location after they've moved from the West to, say, Southeast Asia? The plan was to try to see if we could live the entire month on $1,000 or less.
Here on April 1st, with the exchange rate, $1,000 will be 23,476,000 dong. These are the 500,000 dong bills. This is a 100,000 dong bill. These are the 200,000s. Here's a 20,000. Here's a 50,000. And of course you got smaller ones, such as 5 and 1. That's 23,476,000 dong. This is going to be locked up, and this is everything that we'll be using for the next month. Let's see if it's possible. Can 2 people survive on $1,000 a month or less? And it's that time of the month. Obviously, the biggest hit when it comes to a budget is your living expenses. Unfortunately, our rent is 11 million dong, and that just got flushed out of the budget as of today. So now I have to look and see how much we got left to get us through the last half of the month.
We did not make it. I had all the receipts and the details. I was going to try to go through checklist every detailed expense for the entire thing, but obviously since I'm way late getting to this, we're just going to skip to 5 or 6 bullet points. The first thing I wanted to note was many of these videos you see of the expats showing their budget on how they lived on so much per month. They're solo, they're single guys. So that may increase their entertainment budget maybe, but for the most part, a lot of things are halved. Sure, their rent's still their rent, but say going out to eat and everything. So we're a couple, not a single person. So I have a little additional expense due to the fact that there's 2 mouths to feed. Second point is rent. In Can Tho, where we live, there's not a huge expat community. So when I see videos from other cities and other places, there's a lot of apartments and condos and many options. The whole supply and demand thing gives them a lot more for their money.
But where we live, since we don't have that, there's just traditional Vietnamese houses. Some are nicer than others, but there's no condos with gyms and pools and all of that kind of stuff. Our neighbor, who's a British teacher there, was trying to negotiate with his landlord because his yearly contract was coming up. He was trying to get his rent down, so he came over to ask me how much I was paying. And when I told him, he did a spit take because he said we were paying way too much. It was the nicest place we could find for the first week we were there. I don't know. I didn't know that we had many options. He said we were paying way too much, but since then, I've also talked to a Canadian teacher that's lived there for over a year, and he just flat out told me that we're not going to find anything more livable for a less price. He said the location could be better. If we were more in the thick of things in the center of town, that'd be better, but the quality of the place and the rent, that was the best we were going to do. So I don't know what to expect. We'll find out when we go back in October and look around a little more. Point number 3, some people have specific medical needs. I'm a type 1 diabetic. Try to wear a continuous glucose monitor plugged into my arm. That's an extra expense. Insulin's an extra expense. And then if one person has a specific medical expense that they need no matter what, especially if it's a couple, and both of them, if they both have something, then obviously your mileage may vary on these budget videos because everybody has their own individual things that may add or decrease to that budget. So if you're moving abroad but you have special medical issues, then obviously that will increase the budget. So looking at these videos showing the minimum budget on what it takes to live, obviously it will be more for you. You have to take all of that into consideration. Note number 4, we got sacked with an incredibly high electrical bill in April. It was very bizarre. Our electricity bill is so low compared to what we had to pay for our house in the US, but it was consistently low. December, January, February, March. And for some reason, even though in March we were in Thailand for 2 weeks, so we were only in our house for 2 weeks. I had everything unplugged, everything shut down. No power was going into that house for 2 weeks in the month of March. And yet, for some reason, when the electricity bill came, the usage was over 3 times more than what it normally is for an entire month. And it was only using power for 2 weeks. The electric company had nobody could figure out what the problem was. So they sent out somebody to replace the meter in our house, thinking maybe that was defective. And then they only charged us our highest month that we had in the previous months because it made no sense. So even though we were paying a higher electrical bill, it wasn't the ridiculously high electrical bill that we were originally sacked with. And yes, believe it or not, this is the electric company's vehicle that they sent out. This is the official electric company truck. Point number 5 was transportation issues. Since I failed my motorbike test for the entire 9 months we were there, we were still using Grab. Paying for Grab rides is incredibly cheap, especially if you're just using the motorbikes. It's way cheaper than using Uber in the United States, obviously, but it adds up. We didn't live in the center of town, so since we were a little out to go anywhere, we would have to call Grab. And just in that month of April, when I was actually keeping track of it all, our Grab expenses did add up to more than what it would have been for me to rent a motorbike for the whole month. So if I would have passed my test and rented a motorbike, it actually would have saved money. I know a lot of expats just drive without even worrying about the law, but since I'm trying to live there, I'm trying to do everything above board, so I want the license. I want to be legit. I don't want to just be breaking the law and doing whatever I want without following their rules. And lastly, and this is probably a really stupid thing, especially since I'm claiming that we live there, I have not opened a bank account yet. So needless to say, every month to have money to spend and to live on and to pay rent, I was having to hit the ATM. The ATM fees here in Thailand are astronomical.
The ATM fees in Vietnam are way more reasonable, and I did find one that was the cheapest of all of them. So I always try to specifically go to that one, which helped, but at the same time, the ATM fees added up. So I'm sure if I added them all up over the last 9 months, I would feel really stupid for not just opening a bank and transferring some money over. So when we come back in October, after finding a place to live, I think number 2 is going to have to be opening a bank account, because I just need to transfer some funds over and quit going to the ATM and wasting money on ATM fees. So although I would say that April experiment was a failure, and the other months I wasn't really keeping tabs on everything, so there's a lot of ways that I could have been a little more strict with the cash. For sure, when we come back in October, I'm going to have to follow it a lot more closely, not just for making a video, but just for good financial sense, because I'm going to have to start locking down on some cash, because I spent way too much money last year, and it's time to rein it in. But we will be back, and maybe after I have everything a little more under control, then I'll do another video showing that what our budget is and how we're getting by and how much it actually is costing us to live after I have a motorbike, have my bank account, and have all of my ducks in a row. So now that I finally addressed that, can I throw these receipts away?
And now it's time for a valuable lesson learned. Always check your equipment. Our friends Gift and Joe from Thailand came to visit us in Vietnam, and while we were in Saigon, Joe wanted to go to Cu Chi Tunnels. And of course he's recording for their channel, the Thai Girl Gift and Foreigner Joe channel. I'll leave a link to that video in the description if you want to actually see and hear what he was recording. You can't hear what I'm recording because my mic didn't work at all. I had the extra mic set up to try to get a good recording, and I would have been better off just using the mic that was on my phone, because nothing came through at all. I still don't know what exactly I did wrong, but now whenever I start to film anything with that mic, I always double check it to make sure it's working. Some of these parts, like this entrance here, I think is added later, so it's bigger than what they actually had to go through. I think this was made just for the tourists to feel like they're part of it, coming out of the whole ground. And then, of course, it's just part of the history. You have to see some of the traps that were set in the jungle. You cannot imagine a human having to go through the stuff that was happening during that horrible time in human history. Yeah, Joe never did go underground. I think his big shoulders, he wouldn't have been able to fit in many of these type spaces. Here I'm 6'1" with my current weight. I mean, in no way, shape, or form ready to try to climb down in that hole. In fact, when I was down there, stuff started falling out of my pocket, and I had to reach in with my legs to try to scoop it back up towards me. Oh, there, I got it. But, of course, Miss Mara, being born in Vietnam and only 4'10", she's a little more designed to fit down in these holes so she could get in deeper, but still she was uncomfortable. It was so tight. Here's the termite mounds that they explained to us was used as a way to disguise the ventilation holes so that we get fresh air down underneath. And some of the termite mounds that had the ventilation pipes through them were artificial, just totally man-made, just to try to disguise them. And of course, with any war museum or memorial, you're going to get some heavy equipment like that. And then more traps. There's the sticking trap. You step on and those 4 needles just shoot out into you and trap you there. And if you step on that, rolling trap. The window trap. And the folding chair trap. You see these, and every time you see one you think, oh, that's got to be the worst one, but I think they're all equally bad. It's hard to imagine. So these would be hung up in a room behind a door, so when you open the door, it would just come down. And I believe he said that when they realized that this was a trap that they used, they would know about it and they would stop it. And that's why they added that hinge, so then the bottom part still continued to swing if you threw your hand up and stopped it. And then there's some big guns on the premises. And this was a firing range where you actually could fire the weapons that were used back then. There's the ammo and the cost. Joe and I didn't fire any of the weapons. I'm not really a gun guy and didn't want to do that. Of course, all tourist things in Vietnam, you got to get the example of how to make rice paper. Here's what I was talking about. Joe, he mic'd up the tour guide, so he got a lot of good audio to go with his video. Again, I'll leave a link in the description, so please go give that a watch. I think this entranceway is a good example of stuff that they added for tourists to be able to climb in. But then we got down in this little hole. Again, Mara's 4'10" and I'm 6'1", so she was having a hard time squatting through this, so you know it was rough on my back. I would have been better off getting on if I had jeans on, I would have got on my hands and knees and scooted through here. It would have been a lot easier. This kind of stuff is interesting if you are a student of history, if you are curious about such things. But I have almost a hard time thinking about people going to it like a amusement park, you know, going and having a good time. Almost seems out of place, you know, since it's a memorial of a really horrible time in human history. Yeah, this was almost a minute and a half, maybe close to 2 minutes. We spent down there from end to end, so yeah, it was a little rough on the back. Trying to squat and walk through there. then Joe was standing at the end yelling down there, so because it was kind of spooky when it got real dark, but you could hear his voice telling us that we were going the right direction, so we didn't freak out. Of course, walking out recording, not knowing that I spent the entire day talking to nothing. The microphone didn't work, and I better check my equipment from here on out. Lesson learned.
I'm currently sitting through maintenance round number 2 of my fingernail biting experiment. It's been 25 days, and so far it's worked. I have not chewed on my fingernails. So the question that arises is, do I have to do this for the rest of my life? Or when I pull them off, will I go right back to the same habits? Day 53 since I started my journey at not chewing my nails. So far so good. It's been a little frustrating this last week because the coverings that they've got on there are kind of half on, half off. So instead of picking at them with my other fingernails, I do put them in my mouth. It's like I'm trying to convince myself that if I pop them off with my teeth, it's not really chewing, but I still would get some kind of satisfaction out of it. But I insist on not doing that, so I'm going to go have them worked on and covered up again, have a whole fresh new covering before going on a new trip tomorrow. So far so good, day 53. Trying to get to the nail salon, but Mara insisted on stopping to talk to her yarn dealer. Can't believe that she gets dealt for her addiction right out here on the street, and nobody seems to care but me. We have to put a stop to this. It's fingernail update. It's day 76. I'm going back for one more round of maintenance. They're not even putting acrylic nails on anymore. They're just brushing on that filler stuff and making my nails thicker. So when I do touch my mouth, I know that it's not natural, it's not normal, and it reminds me to pull them out. So believe it or not, I think it was a success. It's been 4 months, over 4 months, and I've not chewed my fingernails, and they're growing out naturally, and there's nothing on top of them to prevent me from biting them. I just don't do it. I still fidget, I still touch, but I don't clamp down, and I'm not biting. 4 months, I think I'm cured. I hope I'm cured. Okay, I was walking across the bridge. I found this utility pole that seems to have been rusted out. It's gone completely. You just see the top of it hanging out there. But don't worry, the wires are not going to fall down because it was replaced with a ladder. Now that is some high quality craftsmanship.